Welcome to this episode of the Meaning of Trees podcast. I've got a special guest here today for what is the last episode of this current series, Bianca Thomas, Girl in a Tree. And we're lucky enough to be filming this today as well. So if you normally listen to the podcast on your regular podcast channels, you've actually got the chance now to see this interview on Spotify or YouTube. So do check that out. And we're here at the Crowhurst Yew in Surrey, an amazing, incredible yew tree. No one's quite sure how old it is. It's definitely older than the church right next door to it. And in this tree is a door, a portal to another world maybe. And I think that's the perfect metaphor for where this podcast is moving. And we're going to chat a little bit about the future of the podcast towards the end of the episode. So listen out for that mic drop moment. For now, though, it's all about my guest. Welcome to the podcast, Bianca. How are you doing?
I'm really well, actually. Thanks, Tom. It's a very British question. And the weather's lovely too.
It's all right, isn't it? Yeah, it's a lovely morning. We didn't know how the weather would be today. And yew trees are places where people would shelter back in the day because of their dense canopy. So I think we had all eventualities covered there. But yeah, I'm really delighted to sit down with you. We met when I was delivering vet cert training, and we've since worked on a couple of little videos together. And I've been learning more about your world and the work that you're doing through your company and your online alias, Girl in a Tree. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more about that. First, though, you know what's coming.
It's very early in the morning for that, but yeah, I do.
The question that everyone finds often the most difficult if they thought a little bit about trees. But yeah, what do they mean to you?
So I have thought about that question. And probably the most truthful answer to that is they are my teachers about science of the living world, so biology, chemistry, and physics. But I think they also teach me how to be a human. They really do. As I've got older, and I take my lessons from nature now, and more specifically from trees, from their just incredible resilience to the way we were talking about this before, their lack of reactivity. If someone gives them an insult, they do nothing. I love that. So yeah, my teachers.
They are kind of model citizens, I often think. Their leadership values are immense, right? How they're amazing listeners. They never chat back or butt in, do they? And I think there's so much they can teach us in terms of the time frames that they operate on as well. Trying to understand a bit more about how you see trees and I suppose where that's come from. What did trees mean to you when you were younger? Can you think about what trees meant to you when you were a child, for example?
It's really weird. Like one of my first memories, and I can't remember if it was just a photo or an actual memory, but I remember walking down the end of my garden, and my parents lived in Greenwich in London. And just looking at there was woodlands at the back and just having this realization, I would have been about 4, that we're all alone. So it was a real sort of existential moment to have, as a young child. And then shortly after that, I realized that we also are going to die at some point, like our life is finite. But I was very much, my dad was a real adventurer and, real kind of endurance events were thrown into our upbringing. So hikes in the rain until no one could walk anymore. Dad loves getting lost as well. And this is back in the time when waterproofs really weren't that good. So it felt a bit like a military event growing up with my mum and dad. But trees didn't have any meaning to me at that point. They were around me, but they didn't have any meaning. But I think the meaning came. So I had a very, very good friend of mine that was murdered, actually, like very brutally. And it was a kind of trio of brutal death. There was 3 people involved in it. And I went to nature to heal. It was 28 maybe. And it was, I just started hanging out in the woods and forests. And I then started doing like solo camping trips by myself. And I just found it incredibly healing. And I think that was really where I forged this relationship with nature. And I realized, there's something that it has to teach us that's very helpful and useful. But I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. So it sounds like your connection with trees is very much an emotional one.
Oh, yeah.
And I share that too. And actually, a lot of our other guests have mentioned, a deep reverence and appreciation as self-reliance, if you like, involving trees and them being around us and us having time with them to absorb them. I know as well that you've spent time living in other parts of the world. So I'm curious what you might have taken from those experiences and how they might have played into that emotional embrace and connection that you have with these organisms.
So, my mum was from Belize, or is from Belize. She's still alive. I spent 8 years in Brazil. And that's an interesting, again, I was around nature, around trees, but they didn't entirely hold meaning to me in the way that they do after I've been working on trees. That's forged in an incredible relationship for me. I think more working on the trees rather than just hanging out with trees. I was lucky enough to be able to hang out in different communities in Brazil, and part of one of those communities was taking ayahuasca. So I took ayahuasca for the first time in my late 30s. And that was, I'd never done any kind of recreational drugs before. I did it in a ceremonial format, and just, everyone I'd been hanging out with had a deep kind of reverence and understanding in nature. And I think I just wanted that. I felt quite disconnected to myself. I was still linked to science. And, took this brew. I was so nervous, and, 8 hours of just hell. I did not see light and love. It was just a lot of people vomiting around me. And I came out of it at the end, and I was just so grateful that I wasn't dead, because you go through this like spiritual death in it. I did anyway.
Yeah.
And when I came out the next day, I had this kind of knowing that I was going to work on trees and be a tree surgeon. And I had no idea what a tree surgeon was. And that was really the path. That was the start of the path.
Yeah. I mean, I've not done ayahuasca, but I have seen a few documentaries and stuff where people do that. And it seems like people almost shed a skin from themselves of sorts. And perhaps they come out of it feeling more aligned to their life's purpose. It seems like that's what happened to you, Bianca. And that purpose involves trees, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And so my trees are my entire purpose of living. Just, I want to know how they work. I want to protect them. But also part of that is learning how to manage trees. We as humans, we live amongst trees. So it's just learning how to manage that respectfully and build a kind of reciprocity. And that builds care for trees. If you care for something, it cares back for you. I really feel like that. That's the kind of thread of indigenous kind of wisdom and communities that I'm looking into. It's like, how do they do that? How do they do both? They manage land, but they still have this communion with trees. And that's what I kind of want to bring to my work. But, the ayahuasca experience, it's you're shedding your ego essentially, and it will then, and once it starts, you can't stop it. It will keep unraveling, and that can be pretty distressing because this whole foundation that you've built your life on, your ego, that I need to do this to be validated, and I need to do this to be enough, and I need to win this competition to have respect.
Yeah.
You realize it's all wrong. And then you have to start from ground zero again. But I've effectively built, my life back up internally and externally with trees.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that every day is a joy. It's not. There's challenges, isn't there, to being human. We're a very complicated species, but it's infinitely better than kind of using the wisdom of other humans, or this kind of conventional wisdom that you're taught at school and your peers, and it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, well, we're conditioned to seek validation from a certain system and certain factors. But what you've connected with is something that goes way beyond that, doesn't it? And you spoke about how work with trees is a form of relationship with trees. And human beings are technically an arboreal species. We wouldn't have these hands, actually, that we might do that work with if it weren't for trees and how we've evolved with them. And where we are right now is kind of a different relationship societally and day to day with trees, where we have this immense power in technology available at our fingertips. And perhaps we've lost some of the consideration and emotion towards trees in how we might apply that technology, or even where it's needed or useful. I think we've lost a bit of trust in trees as well. And that can lead us to feel like we know what's best for their management. And I think that probably leads us nicely into the work that you do with trees today. So how has it been, as someone coming to the arboricultural industry in the UK, a heavily populated place with a lot of important trees, but a lot of conflicts with people as well. How has it been coming into that industry? So versus your dream in that ayahuasca experience, which I'm sure was
it was a living nightmare. It wasn't a dream.
Yeah, talk me through a little bit of that experience, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I kind of, not knowing, from one day to the next, knowing what I was going to kind of devote my life to. And then the reality of it was coming back to the UK and retraining, but discovering as I went into employed work in big firms that actually most people working on trees not only don't understand them, but they don't like them. They like a chainsaw. And that was really distressing, actually. You're new and you have to surrender. When you're learning a craft, you have to kind of surrender this idea that you know best. But you still have your intuition where you go, this doesn't feel right. This isn't how we should be, working on the land. And I've traveled a lot. I've seen not necessarily tree work abroad, but I've seen how people approach nature. And in the UK, especially coming back, I just feel people are very disconnected to themselves. People in the industry treat trees often as objects. We have to do work to them, not necessarily for them, that we're separate from them. Of course, biologically we are, but we're living things, and there is a kind of connection to that. And I don't mean it in a necessarily esoteric way. There's things we can't necessarily understand quite yet, but we're learning more about the root networks and mycorrhizal networks and things like that. And we wouldn't be alive without trees. The trees would be alive without us.
Yeah, you're speaking to natural processes that have been going on for millions of years and largely not involving human beings exclusively. And actually, the tree industry is one that serves human needs first and foremost, and trees second to that. I've noticed in you a real kind of conscientiousness to how you interact with trees. And I know that your clients have been responding well to that kind of approach, which is lovely. And I think we need more people that are thinking arbs, as someone like
do you
Ted Green
know,
or Reg would say.
all the advice I was given at the beginning was be fast, be productive, cut fast, get the job done. We can then cram in more work. It's this kind of, that's the model of tree work. It's speed and productivity. And I just felt intuitively that it didn't make sense to me. First and foremost, you work in a team. So if you've got someone in a tree cutting fast, the people on the ground need to be able to process and clear that. And also, just from even from an actual business point of view, if you remove a tree, there's no more work for you to do with that. It's done. You've ended the life of that tree.
Quick question for you then. So what do you think that driver is for people feeling like they can't do the work quick enough? What's motivating that, do you think?
I don't even think they've thought about it. I think it's just a kind of peer pressure. Or, for example, new businesses that are starting, they might be modeling their business on another business that they seem to think is successful. But also embracing the unknown is a really difficult thing, isn't it? It's like, I didn't know if I could do it when I started my company. It's a year ago now, and it's gone from strength to strength. But my model of business was on care first and foremost, and not just of the tree, but of the people that work with me.
Yeah.
I can't just treat the tree one way and not treat the team in another way. We have to we're all in it together.
Yeah. If you're authentically buying into that ethos of care, you can't separate the two things out, can you?
No, not at all. And also you have lots of young people coming into the industry now. They're school leavers. That the peer pressure in these big firms is big and it's very real. And I came into it in my 40s. I was a bit older, but I've certainly felt this pressure to work fast.
Yeah.
Because if I don't work fast, then I won't be given opportunities to climb, and then I won't progress as a climber. But what you'll learn hurrying is not actually that valuable for you. You won't really be able to take in what you're doing in the tree. Your ropes are going to get wrapped around everything. Hurrying is a very different kind of energy to just being present and going through the steps you need to do to get this task done.
And making high quality decisions, spending a bit more time assessing, evaluating, rather than rushing to cut, which seems to be the default, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm also interested. So as the dad of two daughters who like trees, I try not to push them on them too much, but yeah, it's definitely in them. They definitely have a curiosity for trees, which I'm really looking forward to seeing how it evolves in their lives. But I know at the moment, if either of those wanted to become an arborist, actually, they'd be entering what is a pretty undiverse industry. It's very male dominated, has been for a long time traditionally. And also in terms of general diversity in that industry, it's one of the least diverse. I've seen the statistics, and a lot of the agricultural and sort of countryside industries reflect the same picture as well. So I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, and how might my girls one day become an arborist if they wanted to?
They don't, Tom. Don't go into the industry. No, I'm joking. I think that was another shock, I suppose. Diversity is having groups of people with different experiences, different viewpoints, different ways of doing things. It's just incredibly useful. It's how you progress. Industries move forward often with this kind of crosstalk on the fringes of one industry with another. And that was something that I didn't realize was so bad coming into this, is professionals like to stay in their lane, I think. So the tree officers will stay over here and they don't like the tree surgeons, and the scientists stay over there and they don't really want to, not only do they not want to kind of communicate their science, even the language is this just gateway to their work. And that was, I don't see, if no one wants to move out of their little bubble, it becomes incredibly difficult to move an industry forwards. Yeah, there's a lot of hurdles with that, because I believe that sharing knowledge and talking to different professionals in all these different spheres of knowledge is really important to learning about trees and living systems.
Yeah. And
that's why you're so special.
Well, I was about to say, like,
a ground-based consultant.
That this podcast is all about trying to dissolve some of those boundaries between the different conversations going on. We have had people speaking about trees in a spiritual sense. We have had people speaking about them in their own personal stories and emotional connections. We've also had some really technical episodes as well, and scientific viewpoints as well. And personally, I just love the breadth and the kind of synergies between those different ways of looking at and speaking about trees and learning about them. That's the main thing, isn't it? That these incredible organisms have got far more still to teach us. We're really just scratching at the surface of what they're about and how they live on for centuries. And if we're a species that's currently under threat, it's a no-brainer to me that we would be looking to long-lived creatures like these to learn a thing or two to help us keep going, if that's going to be possible.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, there's this idea that as humans, our intelligence is superior. There's a hierarchy, isn't there, of intelligence? But trees, of course, they have an intelligence. It's not a human intelligence. I want to know about that intelligence. I want to find a language to understand it, but also to be able to share it to different groups. This is the thing of language, isn't it? It can really polarize people. Spiritual words can really polarize the atheists, and it's unnecessary. The English language is particularly bad because we objectify everything, don't we? In the Latin languages, you have a feminine and a masculine for objects, but we just have it.
Yes, yeah.
And that's something I always think about. Has our English language, has it alienated us a bit from living things? But that's part of how I actually see my job, is communicating these ideas just to a kind of broader audience as well, just so there can be more conversation and more knowledge sharing.
Yeah. We've spoken a little bit there about some of the challenges you've experienced coming into the tree industry, but I know you must also have had some pretty magical experiences since you made that change in your life. Which ones come to mind when you think of the best moments?
Well, lately, just through the girl in the tree thing, yeah, it's put me in touch with some really wonderful people, you being one of them. I felt very isolated and lonely coming into it. And I think I've always, from childhood, felt the sense of not belonging in the world, and trees have actually helped me in that process where I'm like, actually, no, I kind of belong everywhere. But one of the magical experiences was climbing the giant redwoods in California. But it's also the bringing together of people,
Yeah.
of wonderful people. And this is just the irony of trees that can't move, but they bring, we actually technically met over the Fredville Oak. And it brings these amazing people together.
Just to explain that to our listeners. So I saw that you visited that incredible tree and reached out to you on social media to ask how you got access to the tree, because it is on a private estate. You have to arrange access, and you kindly shared how you did that. And I imagine we might get a few questions about that now. But yeah, really grateful for that. And what a special experience of meeting that tree. How did you find it?
Oh, it's just really, I've seen that tree twice now, and I want to see it in every season. Oh, it just the last time I went, the sun, it'd been raining, and we were like, oh God, really? We've driven all this way. And then literally 5 minutes after we arrived, the sun came out and started streaming through the hollow, and it was like that stained glass that's behind us, just this illuminated kind of column of light. It was so beautiful. And this is the other interesting thing, that although, perhaps most people don't have this feeling of trees as living organisms, but when they see an ancient tree, it all becomes very different, doesn't it? People start talking about the tree as if it's a person.
Yeah.
This personhood to tree. Oh, she's beautiful, isn't she? And I think that I find so interesting, that ancient trees, people have a respect and look to them as elders, I think, and kin, whereas as the younger the trees get, we lose that.
Yeah, but unless we have a bit of that reserved for the younger trees, we won't have ancients going forward.
Yeah, exactly.
We're losing them at an alarming rate. And it's that middle group of trees, your average sized or aged tree, that seem easier to remove in our society without a second thought. But we totally got to raise the appreciation for those as well coming through. I'm really grateful to have kind of collaborated with you in the last few weeks. And in starting to round off this chat, I think it's only right that we share that actually, moving forward, just as I was about to dial down the podcast activity, because I'm expecting a new baby, all being well, touch wood.
How weird is that, touch wood? I just realised that.
Who knows what will happen, but yeah, hopefully, I'm going to become a dad again. So I'm going to be pretty busy, and I'm really conscious that I need to carve out plenty of time to support my other half, Holly, with our new arrival, and the rest of my family as well. And at the same time, I've absolutely loved the podcast and really grateful that actually you're going to be taking it on for a bit. So this is the last episode of this season, but actually we're already chatting about what the next one might look like. And actually you're going to play a way more significant role in leading that, Bianca. And I'm absolutely buzzing to see where you go with that. And the next episode that our listeners and viewers now will be able to see or hear is going to be us taking a bit of a retrospective view of the podcast to date, but also where it might go from here on. So what are your thoughts about this? No pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure. Thanks, Tom. It's just like up to my workload. No, I'm so excited about it. It's this is having these conversations with people about trees is just, it's the reason that part of the reason I strive to be better, I suppose. It means everything to me. So, and then just, being able to put that out into the world and share all these different viewpoints about trees. I'm really excited for it. Thank you for passing the baton on.
Not at all. No, I think for me, it feels like the right thing. I'm just full of gratitude that actually this thing I've started is actually going to take on a slightly new life of its own. And I know that our values and the kind of questions we're asking in the tree community or communities are absolutely the same ones. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how you broaden and deepen the answers to those questions and keep going with it. And I will still be around as well. And I'm hoping we
Yeah,
can
you
actually...
think you're stepping down, but you'll be on speed dial every day.
I think we'll be appearing in a couple of episodes together in the future as well. That would be my hope, that, you know, this is a long-term project for me, but actually being able to share that with someone is amazing. So I'm just super, super grateful. But yeah, so we're coming to the end of this chat. You've shared quite a lot, but actually I think over the next episodes that come, when we do get to series 3, I think we're going to learn a bit more about you then, Bianca. But yeah, do check out Bianca's Girl in a Tree Instagram account and videos. She's just set up a new YouTube channel as well. And yeah, it's only right that I hand to you for the final message for our listeners and viewers today.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that question. Honestly, the lesson is, don't be afraid to learn from trees. Just remove judgment of what you think about the world and just slow down and just start observing. I think that's the big one.